Solid Latin 1 students, hope you guys are doing well. Thank you for getting me your assignments and everything. And I wanted to take you through your most recent assignment, which is exercise B today. But first, I thought I would do a fact of the day. I'm going to try to sometimes throw in facts of the day just so we can keep learning about mythology, history, Roman culture, things like that. So make sure to take some notes on the fact of the day so you have those in your fact of the day section of your binder. Today's fact of the day, and again, you can feel free to stop this video, pause it if you need to catch up on something that I say too quickly. But here it is. The fact of the day today is Pygmalion and Galatea. It's a very famous mythology story. So first you should know about Pygmalion. Pygmalion was a sculptor, and he was from an island called Cyprus. Now, the island of Cyprus is kind of between Greece and Turkey nowadays, and Pygmalion was kind of well renowned for being a really good sculptor, probably the best on the island of Cyprus. Okay. Another thing about him was he had never gotten married. He had never found the right woman. He had not really liked the women on Cyprus, and over his years, he had become kind of disenchanted and given up looking for a woman on Cyprus. So after a while, he decides that if he's never going to find the perfect woman on Cyprus, he can't find a woman he loves, that he's going to at least sculpt a woman that would be his perfect woman, right? She's not going to be real, but at least I can kind of imagine what the perfect woman might be, and then it'll be kind of a labor of love. So in between his other sculptures, when he's sculpting things for other people, he devotes some of his own time to making his own sculpture. He'll pour time into it here and there, and it's kind of, like I said, a labor of love. So he works on this for quite a while, and it starts looking good, and eventually he kind of perfects it and gets it close to where he wants. Now, a thing you should know about the island of Cyprus is that lots of different cities and islands in the ancient world had a specific god or goddess who was sacred to that island or city, right? Just like Athens, Athena, of course, was the patron goddess of Athens. That's why the city was named after her. So on Cyprus, their kind of patron goddess, doesn't mean they ignored the others, but their patron goddess was Aphrodite, the goddess of love, who we've learned about a little bit before. So, at one of the festivals dedicated to Aphrodite that they would have on Cyprus, because again she was kind of special to them, Pygmalion went to one of these festivals one time to enjoy and participate in the festival, and he probably goes and makes some prayers to Aphrodite, some sacrifices, who knows exactly what, but every time he pretty much prays to Aphrodite, he prays, I've never found a woman, let me find true love, let it happen for you. He doesn't think it'll happen at this point, but he still says it because Aphrodite is there and she's the goddess of love. So he does this at the festival as he's done a lot of times before, and something different happens this time though. The next time he goes home after the festival, he goes back into his workshop, his studio, and he notices his statue looking a little bit different. It looks like something's a little bit weird with it. He goes up to it, touches it, and notices that it's a bit warm, and all of a sudden his statue transforms and turns into a living woman. And that's the big part of the story here, is this miraculous transformation. So basically Aphrodite supposedly heard his prayers in this story and thought that, hey, this guy seems to be earnest and wants someone, and she decides to turn his statue into a real woman. So the statue becomes real, and she eventually takes the name Galatea, and that's the name in the story. They fall in love with each other once she becomes a real woman, and Pygmalion and Galatea get married, and they seem to be very happy together. Some of our mythology stories end in a couple, something bad happening to them or something. Mythology's kind of weird like that sometimes, but Pygmalion and Galatea seem to be happy with each other. They're good to each other, and they even have a son called Paphos later on as a result of their marriage. So a pretty positive mythology story. Another part of the story is that after this miraculous thing happens later on, Pygmalion goes back to the temple of Aphrodite, and he remembers to thank her and offer sacrifices, because we've seen a few other stories that we've done for Facts of the Day where the person in the story did not thank the gods. They did not, give the proper respect and thanks, and the gods punished them for it. So in this story, Pygmalion does not get punished because he does go back and he is thankful and he offers thanks to the gods. So pretty positive story as far as what some of ours didn't like. Now, You've probably never seen these movies. They're from the 1980s, but they're kind of based on this story, interestingly or not. There was a movie called Weird Science. If you've never heard of it, ask your parents about it. They probably know. It was about these two kids in high school, and they could never really get a girlfriend or anything. And so they cut off pictures of pretty girls from magazines and stuff. They put them into a computer. It's kind of silly, but eventually this imaginary girl they make turns into a real woman, and she's beautiful and everything. It's kind of a quintessential 80s movie that was pretty popular at the time. Another movie is called Mannequin, which is where a man falls in love with this beautiful mannequin in the store window, and eventually it comes to life. And the exact plot is not that, but it's just kind of cool to see that there was some modern movies made off of this mythological story we just talked about. And one last little aside about this story is that this picture was from a protest on the island of Cyprus. Cyprus is obviously still there. It's still an island. People still live there. A person from Cyprus is called a Cypriot. And a number of years back, I was watching the news, and this people of Cyprus, there was some sort of financial crisis going on. Everyone was very upset about. The exact details aren't that important, but basically it was a big, big financial crisis, and there was riots and protests and everything. And I saw this on the news. This woman was holding up a sign that says Aphrodite is angry, which I thought was very funny because obviously they don't really believe in Aphrodite anymore, but it just shows that she's even nowadays kind of still like a symbol of Cyprus, almost something they still connect with, even though it's just mythology. So I thought that was kind of a cool Greek mythology reference in the real world in the news. So that's our fact of the day on Pygmalion and Galatea, and I'll try to follow up with some other facts of the day as we keep going. And next, I will turn it over to our assignment. Now, you can pause it and turn over to your homework assignment. This is what you did, your sentences for exercise B on page 80. And I'm going to go over these sentences. I'll try to go over them in detail, tell you how they translate, but also, explain grammar and things like that. If there's something you don't get, you got one wrong, you don't understand why you got it wrong, pop by my office hours. I've been seeing people at office hours every single day, having some good conversations. So pop by and see me if you're not sure what you did right or wrong. So the first sentence was Duces novos milites in castra mox vocabunt. So to translate this one correctly, the leaders will call the new soldiers into the camp soon. Okay. Now, what are our new words here? Duces for leaders. That is your it's the plural ending there of a third declension word. Milites is also a new word. Miles militus, meaning soldier. Now here's something to think about. Both of these words, if you think about the plural endings, they go ace, ibis, ace, ibis for third declension. So what that means is this could either be nominative or accusative, and this could either be nominative or accusative. So how do I tell which one's the subject, which one's the object? Well, it's context. A lot of times context tells you how to translate something, right? So just by the context of the sentence, it's much more likely that leaders would be calling soldiers to do something rather than soldiers would be calling leaders. So that's why just by context, I took this as the subject and soldiers milites as the object, okay? Mox is a word from our current vocab that means soon. And look at your verb here. Will kabunt means will call because it's got the future tense sign here, okay? So that's how the translation came down. And again, pop into my office hours to see me if there's something you don't understand. I'm trying to explain things I can think of that people may have gotten wrong, but I could miss something. Let's go on to number 2. You can try it out. Legatus laudavit consulis filios. So here we have the lieutenant praised the consul's sons. Okay. Legatus is the nominative, so it's the subject, and here's your object. Filios is in the accusative. Which word here is our new word? That is consulis. Consulis. Now, because this word has a genitive ending, it is possessive, so that's why it's the consul's sons in the sentence. What about the verb? The verb is perfect tense. So laudavit means praised or did praise because it's a perfect tense verb. I do want to say that some of these sentences you might have a little bit different and still be correct because, sometimes Latin words can translate correctly more than one way. For example, this verb laudavit is perfect tense. There's 3 ways to translate that. It could be the lieutenant praised, the lieutenant did praise, or the lieutenant has praised the consul's sons. So there's sometimes some leeway with translating language where you have more than one way you can do it, okay? So if you're not sure, you have an answer and you think it may be correct and it's a little bit different, it could still be correct from what I'm saying here. Number 3 is pater meus amicus erat consulum in Italia. So this one is, my father was a friend of the consuls in Italy. Okay, pater is clearly the nominative here, so that's why it's the subject of the sentence. My father was a friend. Amicus. What's amicus doing here? Think to yourself, well, it's also a noun, but here it's following the verb erat. He was a friend, so it's the predicate nominative. It's a nominative, it's a noun following a linking verb, which we've always called a predicate nominative. And then finally, consulum is the genitive plural of this word, ace, ibis, ace, ibis. And so that's why it's genitive, that's why it's possessive, a friend of the consuls in Italy. Okay, that's the correct translation there. Number 4, milites in agro, post castra diu pugnabant. One of our new words here, milites. So milites is nominative, so the soldiers were fighting for a long time in the field behind the camp. Okay, you have several prepositional phrases in the sentence, like in agro. Remember, in has different meanings depending on whether it's used with a nominative or accusative word. Here, sorry, with an ablative or accusative word. Agro is ablative, and so that's why it's in the field. Post goes to the accusative, so castra is accusative. Post can mean after or can mean behind, but behind the camp just makes better sense in the context of the sentence here rather than after the camp. Doesn't make near as much sense. Okay, so that's our translation. And the verb is imperfect, pugnabant. That's why it's kind of incomplete action. The soldiers were fighting. Number 5 is something we learned pretty recently, nara. Try to ask yourself what form that is. That is the imperative form we learned pretty recently. It's a singular imperative. Imperative means you're ordering someone, you're giving a command. So nara, tell Julia the story to your little brother. So you're telling her, you're giving her a command, tell the story. Now what form is Julia? Julia is the vocative of that word, of her name, and that means you're addressing her. Okay. Finally, tuo fracci parvo. All three of these words agree with each other. The reason they don't look exactly the same is because these two words are second declension, whereas this word is third declension. What case are all three of them? Dative. That's why it's the indirect object receiving the story. Tell the story to your little brother. So brother is the dative there. Okay. So make sure you got the imperative quality of this sentence here, and again, make some notes. If there's something you need to ask about later, you can come ask me about that. What else? Number 6, ubi imperator copias Galliae superavit. So there's a question. It starts with a question word, an interrogative word right here. So this one, where did the general defeat the forces of Gaul? Okay. So here we have our new word imperator, the general, the commander, and we have the perfect tense verb. Where did the general defeat the forces of Gaul? Remember this word copias. You might remember it. It has a different meaning when it's singular versus plural. When it's singular, it means just a supply of something or an abundance, but in the plural, it means troops or forces. So if you translated it as supply here, it might have not made as much sense in the sentence. Okay, so that is 6. Number 7, multa et pulchra dona dederamus nostrae sorori. Okay, now this one you might be tempted to make gifts the subject of the sentence because you see dona, that could be a nominative ending and it's the first noun in the sentence, so you're thinking, okay, gifts is the subject. But if you always look to your verb before rushing to jumping to conclusions, the verb ends in eramus. What does that mean about it? It's first person plural, so the subject must be we. Okay. What does that mean about dona? It can't be nominative. The only ending that could be is accusative because that word is neuter. What about the tense here? Dederamus. Make sure you could identify this tense. It's one we've learned before. Dederamus is the pluperfect tense. Okay. So that's a little explanation, but here's a good translation. We had given many beautiful gifts to our sister. Okay. Again, the pluperfect, the only way to translate that is we had given. Now, nostrae sorori, these two words go together. They're both dative because they're receiving the gifts. So sister is the indirect object here. Okay. So check over your sentence, see if you came close on that or if you had a problem you need to correct. Number 8, post proelium, erit novus imperator. The verb here is erit, which is a linking verb. What follows linking verbs? We talked about it a minute ago. The predicate nominative. So here we have, after the battle, there will be a new general. So the new general here, or commander, is the nominative, and the verb is future tense. That's why it's there will be a new general. Okay, again, there's little variations you could be using to get these correct. You could say new commander here, because imperator has two things. It can mean commander or general. Okay. Number 9 here. Fama dei nostri imperatores bona fortuna latte longeque volaverat. I'd say this is one of the more challenging sentences on the assignment. So if you have a little trouble with this, just pay attention. You'll understand what's going on here. Um, so fama is clearly nominative, that ending there. So we know that the rumor or reputation is um, the subject here. Which way do I translate fama? Rumor, reputation, report. Well, something that's flying around, I would probably translate as rumor, and that's what I did here. So the rumor, de, can mean from or about, and about makes more sense here. So the rumor about the good fortune of our general. These words are genitive, so that's why it's of our general. The rumor of him had flown, latte longeque. These two words here, you should recognize those e's, those long e's, as both being adverbs. What does that mean about them? It means they modify verbs. So the rumor had flown far and wide is how I said this. This technically means long, but longly doesn't really make sense. So far is a kind of a better adverbial translation here. Okay, so there's a lot going on in number 9. The verb is pluperfect. That's why we translated it had flown. And what else? De, our preposition here, takes the ablative. Now these words are not ablative, so that's not what de is going with. De is going with these words, which are ablative. De bona fortuna, about the good fortune of our general. Okay, there's a lot going on there in number 9. And finally, number 10. See if you finish off well on number 10. In villa mater, Juliam expecta ad oppidum ambulabo. So I translate this one. Remember, the fact that there's a semicolon here means it's kind of two grammatically separate sentences. So this one, in the farmhouse, mother, wait for Julia. I will walk to the town, is how I translated this. Why did I do that? Well, we have another expecta. That's another imperative. You're commanding someone. And who are you commanding? Whom are you commanding? You're commanding mother, because mater is the vocative here, and it's clear to see because that's set off by commas. So mother, you're addressing her. Wait for Julia. That's the imperative. And then this part of the sentence is completely grammatically separate. What is the verb here? It's future tense. So I shall walk to the town, or I will walk to the town. Either one of those could be ways to translate the future tense. Okay. So I'm hoping you guys are getting some good descriptions and explanations of these sentences. I'm trying to give you a lot of analysis in class. It's obviously a little bit easier because I can directly ask your questions and respond to things there, but I'm trying to be as thorough as I can. But again, make little notes in your homework, and if you just got something that's just gnawing at you, you can't be sure, you don't know if you figured it out right, drop on my office hours. Even if you're just there for 5 minutes, it's fine. You can just tell me, hey, here's a little question I had, and I can go over that with you. Okay, I have been seeing people every day in my office hours, and I love connecting with you guys and kind of keeping in touch even while we're at a long distance like this. Okay, hope everyone's doing very well. This weekend I've decided not to give you any homework. I'll let you guys kind of recuperate after this first tricky week of online learning. You guys have been doing some good stuff this week, but so no assignment to do over the weekend, but I will be back on Monday with your next lesson, and I'm hoping by later next week we'll be ready for our quiz on the third declension on chapter 14. So that means that you don't have any new homework, but you want to be studying your new vocabulary from chapter 14 also, which will be crucial on the next quiz. Okay, I hope you guys are having a good time at home with your families. Hope your families are well, and I will see you on Monday with a new lesson. Have a great weekend.